Welcome to a new season of Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor. I'm a mediator, developmental psychologist, conflict resolution teacher, and mom of 5. And just like you, I've had my fair share of conflict. Over time, I've realized conflict isn't something to fear. It's simply part of life. What matters is how we respond, and if we have the tools to handle it with confidence and care. And that's what this podcast is all about. In each episode, you'll hear me coach someone through a real conflict they're facing. You'll listen as they share their story, and I'll guide them towards solutions that align with their goals and values. Along the way, I'll point out skills and strategies you can use in your own life, whether at work, at home, or in your other relationships. So whether you've been with us since season 1 or you're brand new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. Today I'm coaching Clay. He grew up in a blended family with half-siblings who are much older than him. But his father died when Clay was only 6, so he primarily grew up with just his mother and his older sister, Lucy. 2 years ago, Lucy and Clay became estranged, and now he's trying to decide whether to rebuild that relationship. So we're going to explore his options. Clay, it's great to have you here today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Emily. Appreciate it.
Just to start, could you tell me a little bit about what's the conflict that you want to talk about today?
So a couple years ago, my mom was stricken with COVID. She caught COVID and was not doing very well. And my sister is a tremendous caregiver. She lost a daughter to cancer in her teenage years. She has a special needs daughter. My sister knows how to take care of people. She lives in another state, and she flew out to take care of my mom here locally, and I think became overwhelmed with the work that it entailed. And my mom wasn't recovering very well, wasn't being very responsive. So I could tell my sister was starting to get really frustrated. And she started to think about my mom's mortality and went through some documents, the will, the trust, and a few things. And in the document, my mom had selected me as the trustee and the only person in the family to have power of attorney, not my sister. And
so you didn't know this?
No, I didn't know this.
Interesting.
I didn't know it at all. So she threw the documents up in the air, and I wasn't there. She called me and said, "Hey, I gotta go. I'm not taking care of mom anymore." And we were just going to look at some housing or some nursing facilities for my mom. And she's like, "I'm not going to look for that. It's all up to you. You have to do you get to do everything. I'll support whatever you do, but you have to do it all." I'm like, "What the heck is going on here?" And then, I go there, come to find out that she's not happy about this outcome, and explain to her I didn't even know. And she's like, "I feel betrayed," and whatever the emotions is that she was going through.
Is she older than you?
2 years older than me.
Okay.
And
so you're the youngest in the whole,
I'm the youngest out of the 5.
Okay.
But for all intents and purposes, I really just grew up with my sister.
So it was the two of you.
So my father passed away when I was 6. That puts my sister at 8. Pretty much from 6 on, so I'm 58 now. It's been the 3 of us as the primary, family. And all my other siblings are great, and they treat my mom wonderfully. And this is the root for me. I feel like I tolerate a lot. And I remember hearing this once, and this is what is a concern I have about how I'm processing this, is that someone said that the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And I have spent my entire life proud of my indifference and kind of like, I'll just move on, no big deal. And so as I think about this relationship, I am a little bit consumed by my lack of interest in repairing it. And this is a little bit, might be funny, but this is not the first time my sister's not talked to me for a few years. It's a cycle. And so part of me is like, I don't really want to renew the cycle because it just starts the clock on the next time I do something or say something that really, really agitates her and she wants to remove me from her life. And Emily, here's the truth. The times I'm in the penalty box with my sister are like the best years of my life. And I'm not proud to say that, but I'm saying it doesn't come with the complexity of the relationship with her. And it is, you kind of walk on eggshells. And so again, I'm not proud of the fact that I can be indifferent. I don't feel this urgency to resolve this. And honestly, when I'm not trying to manage the relationship with her, life just is a little easier. So, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel, but I don't think it is the way I currently feel.
Okay, friends, Clay just said something pretty significant. Have you ever thought to yourself, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel, but I don't think it's the way I currently feel? Internal conflicts are common, especially when complex family relationships are involved. Before deciding whether or not to reengage an estranged family member, or going about solving any conflict really, sort out your internal conflict as the first step. You might do this with a therapist or a trusted friend or in a journal. Ask yourself questions like, why do I feel conflicted about resolving this? Why am I uncomfortable with the situation as it currently stands? Do my actions in this conflict or relationship reflect my values, the things that matter most to me? If not, why? Getting more clarity on your internal conflict around a problem will put you in a much better position to choose a path forward. As we head back to the session with Clay, I'm going to do a little more digging to figure out what's at the root of his internal conflict over not really wanting a relationship with his sister Lucy, but still feeling like maybe he should have one anyway.
So at the end of the day, I think this whole thing blew up because she felt betrayed by me being power of attorney and trustee, and she felt betrayed by Mom, and I was pretty much, Mom's a 92-year-old woman, get off her case. This is not going to be a big deal. Quit making something out of this that it isn't. And I just and Lucy, if you don't say things exactly the right way, it's a launch pad for a pretty aggressive response back. So my mom is always terrified that she's going to say the wrong thing. And I'm just like, listen, I want my mom to have a great relationship with Lucy along with all my other siblings. I would never want to be perceived as being territorial with my mom. But I do know that we are my mom's ballast. We are the one easy, predictable experience that she's going to have. She's going to have a great interaction with me and with my wife and with my grandkids all the time. I know Lucy doesn't offer that. It's unpredictable.
Okay. So in terms of a pull factor to try to resolve it, it's not necessarily for your mom's benefit per se. Are there any beliefs, principles, experiences that say, hey, Clay, you should try to resolve this?
Well, I just know that, at the end of the time, as I just lost my older brother to cancer, I realized that the greatest gift we have is time. And then probably relationships. And you combine time and relationships and you want to be really, I know as I get older and my health diminishes, it's going to be family that's going to be important to me. And so I just feel like there is a higher power that says you're supposed to have normalized relationships with your siblings. That's the way it's supposed to be. So I feel like there's an ideal that I should want. And Emily, as I've told you, I'm not sure I want it.
Okay. Here's something I was actually just talking to one of my kids, and we were he was trying to make a decision. We were using the Covey, I care about this from a 0 to a 10, kind of 10 being I really care about this.
Yeah.
If you were thinking absolute no interest, 0 in trying to reconcile or kind of bring in my sister again, and versus 10, absolutely want to, where are you on that scale? 0 to 10 interest.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know.
No. But this is what's interesting, Clay, is you saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. The supposed to seems like it's one part of you, right? The belief system?
Yeah,
or
for
no?
sure. Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
So is the supposed to that I'm supposed to have good relationships with my family?
Yeah. Well, for sure. I
Okay.
know in an idealized world, I would want everything to be amazing across all my siblings and all my relationships. But maybe it's this. I have spent the better part of my life not being honest with my sister because I didn't want the chaos that it created, because I just knew she couldn't handle how I felt about things. I often curtailed my perspective in things I would share with my sister just to force agreement and just move things along. And so I have spent so many years doing that it's somewhat liberating just to be like, Lucy, kick rocks. You know what? And honestly, and so that's like my answer to you on this 0 to or 1 to 10 scale. My answer is a 0. Okay. It is a 0, but I know it's supposed to be a 7 or an 8, and that's why I like this conversation, because I'm like, should I be trying to move in that direction, or should I just try and, let time figure it out and not force it? I don't know, but I'm a 0. I'm a 0.
Okay, friends, we made some important discoveries about Clay's ambivalence. Maybe you've been in his shoes before, where you've had a conflict, but absolutely no interest in resolving it. The important thing I want you to take from this is to notice when you feel indifferent, and then ask yourself why. Indifference can show up in 2 very different ways. Healthy indifference is a form of self-regulation. It's the ability to stay steady without feeding drama or escalating tension. It helps you manage the conflict without reacting impulsively, so you can act with intention rather than instinct. Unhealthy indifference, however, is less about regulation and more about disconnection. It manifests as checking out of a conflict. It may feel calm on the surface, but it leaves tensions, both internal and external, unresolved. So when you find yourself feeling indifferent, ask if it is healthy or unhealthy. Do you want to manage the conflict calmly while conserving your energy for core matters? That's a healthy approach. Or are you disengaging completely just to avoid any friction, which is not so healthy? Let's see if we can get a better handle on Clay's indifference toward his estrangement with Lucy. Do you mind telling me what you wanted to say to her? Kind of more generally as opposed to a specific situation?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I have a really good example, but, getting to the point that you just made, and then I'll come back to the question, I do feel like my safety net is indifference and ambivalence. I feel like that's the world in which I'm comfortable. And I just can't believe that that's a healthy place to be. At the same time, I think maybe it is the hypocrisy that I've observed from my sister.
Okay.
Over the years.
Tell me more. What kind of hypocrisy? Just lay it out.
It just really rubs me wrong when she points out my imperfections or things, and I just like, I don't want to take it from you. I'm not going to take it from you because I know enough about you to be like, you're coming from a place that's not the best example either.
Okay. So kind of underlying some of the tensions are from even a much younger age.
Much younger.
You basically seeing her say one thing or be hard on you, maybe even particular about how she talks to you, but she's not living the same kind of standard.
I remember one time as a kid, and I had a black lab, and it was my dog, and that dog shed like crazy. And I'm sitting in the laundry room where the dog would sleep at night. Lucy said to me, Clay, you need to go clean up the hair in the laundry room from the dog. And I'm there with a wet towel, and I'm wiping it along the floor and trying to clean it up. And then she's got this dry mop, and she's jabbing me with it, and I'm on the floor, and she's like, do it, do it, do it. And she still was a little bit bigger than me at the time, and I just remember I saw red, and I reared up, and I'd never done this in my life, and I punched her in the face. And she fell back, and I think she was dazed for a few seconds. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I'm scared. And then as she kind of came to, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm never taking crap from this girl again. And it was all of a sudden it went from what did I do, scared, to what did I do, liberated. And ever like
so there was something positive for you, despite like, whoa, I surprised myself, but what was the outcome of you having done that?
She became
for you.
For me, it was like I'm becoming a little bit more in control of the relationship with my sister, and everything had always been very reactive with her, And she doesn't like it when I'm proactive with her. I actually think she's a little bit of a bully, like an emotional bully. And she likes her way, and she's type A. And again, I think 9 out of 10 times that's a great way to be, and very, very focused. But there's times when it's a bit much. And so I have found that when I respond in a proactive way with her, she doesn't handle that very well. And that's often when these events happen.
Okay. I think it might be helpful for us to backtrack a little bit to what you mentioned about the safety net of indifference and a lack of interest.
Yeah.
Because when you mentioned it, it kind of sounded like this is what I usually do, and I'm not sure this is the healthiest. I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but can you unpack that a little bit? Tell me more what you mean by that.
Well, I would say that on the outside, I probably am pretty neutral. I guess in ice cream flavors, I'm probably pretty vanilla when it comes to things that are affecting me emotionally. And I would kind of take pride in that. I just wouldn't get twisted in knots over just stuff. And so again, I think that has been a defensive mechanism for me to just try and at least not let things become too big of a deal. I just take the pride and like let it roll off. It's going to be fine. Time heals all things, and so don't make it more than it needs to be. And like I think that's an okay way to approach things, is to be patient with it. But I think I'm more stressed than I realize. And so I just came back from a doctor's exam of all things, and I was like, doctor, my hips kill me. Like I can't stand, and I'm way too young to have bad hips. And I know, and so he did a bunch of physical examinations, and he said to me, some people carry stress in their neck, some keep it in their shoulders. He's like, you carry everything in your pelvis. And I'm like, really? What does
that mean?
What is it like?
Tell me, how do we fix it? What do I need to take?
And he said to me, he's like, the way you're going to fix it is you're going to go to a pelvic therapist, because he's like, I haven't seen stress like this before. And that's what's wrong with your hips, and that's what's wrong with all these other things going on with you. It's not your age, it's your stress. So, but I guess my point is I feel like I'm navigating really, really well, but I'm wondering if maybe I'm not. I'm just hiding it in ways like stressing my hips, or, if I'm just masking it. But I'm not particularly worried about it. That's the thing, is I'm not worried about it, but I'm just thinking logically, well, this can't be good.
Okay, friends, it seems like Clay has a mixture of both healthy and unhealthy indifference. On the one hand, he learned from that punching incident as a kid that he really needed to stay in control of his emotions. And keeping a bit of emotional distance with his sister has helped him to do that. But he's leaned so much into ignoring and avoiding conflict that the pent-up stress is manifesting physically. I'm not suggesting here that if you've been keeping your distance in a conflict, you should suddenly drop your defenses and fully engage. If Clay does that with Lucy, it may backfire. But his body is sending him a pretty clear message that what he's doing isn't working. Maybe your hips, shoulders, or neck are telling you the same thing. And if so, I encourage you to do some careful thinking about your level of indifference versus intentional engagement with the conflicts in your own life. As we've learned in previous episodes of the podcast, the choice isn't simply to fight or to give in. There are ways to ease the stress of a conflict without putting yourself at risk, if that's what you want, of course. And that's what it comes down to with Clay. What does he want? Let's find out. Is there a way you could imagine breaching the gap, like reaching out or connecting with Lucy?
I think what happens is if it's going to end up being time. There's going to be a family event where we all have to be there. Unfortunately, it might be a funeral, but we will realize that we can all be around each other and it's all just fine. And I think it's probably, rather than some moderator that comes in and fixes it, I think it'll probably just be an event that is the catalyst to maybe a softening of relationships. I don't think any of us are brave enough to make the move without something else forcing it. Part of it is I think she thinks it's my fault, and I am absolutely not in the view that I did anything wrong. I just absolutely am of the view that I'm not at fault, and I don't want to apologize for something that I didn't do. Now, am I a big enough person to take the hit just for the sake of mending things? I probably am, but I'm not there yet. I'll tell you that. And it kind of bugs me that I think she thinks it's my fault. I think it's crazy.
Okay. So most marital, most parent-child, and most sibling conflict doesn't necessarily get resolved kind of naturally. So there has to be oftentimes in terms of reconciliation, there has to be a concerted effort to say, I want this. I'm hearing you say right now, I don't want this. But interestingly, also with the research, it says, but that may change. Like there's a static moment 2 years ago, the flying of the papers, for the will.
Yeah.
But because you've changed. You just told me about a doctor's appointment and, this stress is in you. You have changed over these past 2 years. And my guess is she has changed over these past years. And one other thought, again, not pushing you one way or the other, what does motivate us to action is often anticipatory regret. Anticipatory regret is the idea that I will have missed out on something or this window may pass and something wasn't done. And that's actually part of our age group, like this shift, right?
Yeah.
Like if I don't do this now, I'm not going to get to do it at all, right? I think if possible, this conversation can serve as at least a framework for how to think through, there is some kind of thawing or some opportunity. You, again, understanding what's your, I'm not going to apologize, I'm not crossing that line. But maybe that an apology is not what's required. But if there's a validation or sense of love that doesn't make you have to kind of bend over backwards or be take the fall. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. I would love to approach it rather than apologize and say, I'd really love to understand how we got in such a twisted knot. And here's kind of where my perception is. I'd love to hear your perception. I'm fine with, I'd do that any time. But I think what's happening is neither of us really wants to be
the instigator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, but
I'm open to it.
Open to the possible motivation that you might feel at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being honest. And again, we didn't solve family estrangement, in this episode, but the idea is that we talk honestly, we clarify what we really think and what we need at the time. And then to the extent possible, we try to imagine where the other person is coming from, to imagine some kind of interaction.
Yeah. So, Emily, thank you. You've given me a framework to work with that I didn't have before, so it's very helpful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope you've learned something that will help a conflicted relationship in your life. Let's quickly review the skills we've covered. First, pay attention to your internal conflict and make resolving it your initial priority. In many conflicts, but especially family estrangements, there may be a mismatch between what you want, what you think you should want, and the way things actually are. And you may be letting that disconnect drive you to avoid or lash out or behave in other ways that won't actually lead to the outcome you really want. So sort out why you're feeling torn about the situation. Journal. Talk to a friend or a therapist. Ask yourself, do my actions in this conflict reflect my values? If not, how can I adjust my approach? The second skill we touched on is to notice when you're feeling indifferent and ask yourself why. Sometimes indifference reflects healthy self-regulation, your nervous system protecting you from being pulled back into painful, unproductive patterns. Other times, it signals exhaustion or unresolved hurt. The key question is whether stepping back has brought clarity and stability, or whether it's simply helped you avoid something that still matters, while tension continues to fester for the people involved. When you're feeling indifferent in an intense family drama and wondering, should I care more about this? Try shifting the question to, what is my indifference telling me? And finally, when it comes to estrangement, people often focus on whether they want a relationship or not, and that's an important question to answer for yourself. But the research shows your answer to that question may change over time. So rather than yes, no, in terms of your mindset, create a framework for how you'll engage if the opportunity to reconnect presents itself and you feel open to it. You might consider things like, what emotional capacity or tools would you need to re-enter the relationship without losing yourself in the process? What would the other person need to change or commit to? How much contact would you want, and what conditions would you need in order to feel safe? Reengagement doesn't have to mean full reconciliation. It might mean limited contact only under certain circumstances. When you're clear about how you'd engage, what you're hoping for, and what you're not willing to tolerate, you're far more likely to move forward or stay back with steadiness rather than regret. Thanks for joining me today. If there's someone in your life who might benefit from listening to this episode, please share it. Because, as I always say, it's not a question of if, but when we're going to experience conflict, and we do much better when we're prepared. The Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor is a BYU radio podcast. I'd love to connect with you on social media. Find me on Facebook and Instagram at Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily, where I'm sharing more ideas for working through conflict. And if you or someone you know has a conflict that you'd like to discuss on the podcast, send me an email to conflictcoach@byu.edu. And next time, I'll be coaching Vicky, who's dealing with a conflict with a fellow religious leader. I hope you'll join me.